Hi, Lacey. It's symbolic. My God, I log on to YouTube and I find two of my very favorite people on YouTube and in the world involved in this agonizing video conversation. You and Wise Nubian. I can really feel you. I can feel the agony you're going through, Lacey. Racial identity. They're really charged topics in our country. I mean, I suppose around the whole world, but particularly in our country with its despicable history, just despicable history of the way our government has enslaved and committed genocide, against different races, uh, particularly the Africans and the Native Americans. But nobody has escaped unscathed. um, the way always understood Wise Nubian's messages is that he speaks against a mentality, not against people. He's speaking against a white supremacist mentality, not against white people or Caucasians or people of European descent. I'm going to ramble a little bit because there's a lot of territory to cover. Um, White's a color, black's a color. Nobody's really black or white. I'm not white. You're not white. He's not black. Um, in fact, those colors actually divide us right away. I think you pointed that out. I'm not sure. I've been watching the whole chain of videos. Um, I haven't really put too much thought into this. That's why I'm kind of rambling. But um, the whole question of identity in general has always fascinated me. How do we take components and build them into our identities? And in this country, of course, racial identity, there's a large focus on it. Uh, and people who identify with being white, well, I think all Caucasians or all people of European descent in our country are basically told they're white. There's a lot of racism in the country. So for some reason it becomes important for people think it's important to tell you, well, you're not black, you're white, or you're something, or you're Indian, or you're something or other. Um, but the racial identity in general is a tormented thing in this country. But anyway, I'm Caucasian. You're Caucasian, I assume. We're told we're white. Um, Actually, my father was very dark complected. He was Italian and Yugoslavian, Croatian. He didn't consider himself white, and he used to talk about the white people. Um, he had a couple other phrases, but he actually didn't consider himself white. Uh, the Spanish side of my family, however, did, though they were more interested in telling me that I was not Mexican. And it's really, like my father used to say, if it weren't so comedic, it would be a tragedy. So intellectually, it's a comedy, but in real life, it's a brutal tragedy because of the way different people are treated based on their skin tone. In any event, we're somehow people bequeath on us and program us to believe that we are some color. When actually we're not. We're just basically a skin tone. Depends how much sunlight your ancestors got. That's all it comes down to, I think. And we're all descended really from Africa. I think from a single female in Africa. But where am I going with this? I'm sorry to wander. Anyway, I've always understood Wise Nubian to be speaking against a mentality, white superiority mentality. And if you think about it, the people who insist that they are white the most is the Aryan nation. You see those guys, you see, like, I am white, I'm white, and these are my white brothers, and we're all, it's ridiculous. So it's interesting to look at the extremes. I think we learn a lot by looking at extremes. We learn a lot about normal psychology by looking at the abnormal. And if we take a look at the most extreme European descent racists, they're calling themselves white. So it's something. Another thing I think we have to push out of our identity in order to assess who we really are. Um, I Anything involving identity is highly complex. How do we push all our programming away and then really, like true free thinkers, I think, identify the elements in our programming first, identify them, and then push them away, and then build and assess and really build our own identity. I don't know, but I mean, I think the first part is to identify these things and to assess them. It's a difficult journey and it's very painful. It's a very agonizing one. Whatever identity is formed of, and it's very difficult to build one. I mean, most of our childhood and adolescence, we're struggling to build a stable identity. It's very difficult to start removing pieces of it because then there's a danger that the entire facade will collapse. We won't know who we are. Um, Jean-Paul Sartre wrote that great book Nausea. I don't agree with Jean-Paul Sartre. He was a brilliant man. I mean, I think he was. I think most of those guys were trying to prove they were as bright as Hegel. But anyway, he's brilliant. But in the book Nausea, he talks about the fact that we are so free, actually, that it's terrifying for us to realize how free we are. Um, but the first step really is, I think, to push away the programming that society has given us, and that our parents and our families have given us, and it's deep programming. I mean, my father, a brilliant guy, really very brilliant. Even though he could identify certain problems he had, he couldn't for some reason free himself from them. So the first difficult part of even identifying a problem, once you overcome that, then freeing yourself from some sort of false or given definition is even more difficult at times, But you can't get there until you identify them first. But I remember once I was drinking a glass of wine with him, and I was talking, and I moved my hand, and he said, "Watch your hand, Wop." Um, so there's an Italian calling his son Wop. It really quite took me by surprise. And he was giving me a message, but the message that he was giving me in that is that if you use your hands too much, not that you're going to spill the wine, but that's not going to be acceptable by the majority society. So, watch your behavior. Don't move your hands too much. And as you can see, I never really learned that lesson. I don't want to learn it. I rejected that lesson. Um, I probably spilled some wine a couple times though, in the midst of some passionate discussion. Passion is also taboo in this culture. Anyway, if you look at Wise Nubian's videos, I know what you'll see there. You'll see someone who is trying to free free people from the identities, for the most part, false identities that they've been given, um, and then pointing them towards places where they can maybe find valid components to either reclaim as part of their heritage, or to somehow adopt, or to um, build in place of this large hypnotic soup that we're raised in. I'm running out of time. I only got a couple minutes left. I can't cover the whole thing. Um, another thing with these words, as you pointed out in your video, it's very tricky using words, and we tend to fall from one to another. I'll say European descent, and then I'll find myself saying Caucasian, and I'll find myself saying white. And it's all a blurry world, simply because I think all of these words are they're all inaccurate. Um, Something just flashed through my mind. I can't. Something important I wanted to say. Hold on. Well, I can't pause this thing. I have a lousy set of software, but uh, what was it? It was a really good. It was a really important point too. I think I've only got like a minute and 10 seconds to remember. Come on, Nick. Come on, Nick. Um, it had to do with identity in any event, and forming an identity. Oh, I may have to make a second video just for the sake of it. Let me see if I can stop this and then start it again. All right, my memory has stayed loyal to me. It was about, you'd mentioned a point in one of your comments about subconscious racism. Um, yeah, the connotations in those words that Wise Nubian pointed out, for white, angelic, and pure, and then a lot of the negative connotations for black. Um, those things, I think, do have a very powerful subconscious effect, and if anything is going to be pushed below the threshold of consciousness, I mean, this is pure Freud and Jung here. Um, uh, it's going to be painful things of that nature, painful racial identity. These are the kind of things that are going to be pushed below the threshold of consciousness in our society. But in any event, those things do have a powerful effect on us, I think, whether we're aware of them or not. Not so much that they become a form of that they are overtly racist, but the connotations affect us. I'm sure they do. You know, that's the story there. I wanted to say that. Anyway, you look really agonized. I don't like to see you so agonized as I saw you in this video, huh? I'm out of time. I'm gonna have to tack this on. Wish I could talk longer. Where's my arrow going? But I'll talk to you soon. Take care, Lacey. Bye bye.